Good
All right.
morning, Jennifer, Sarah. We are so excited, aren't we?
We are so excited, and that music just makes you even more excited, especially when we're going to have a music session, right? I love
You
seeing
bet.
everybody in the chat from all over the place. It's so exciting that you're all here. Well, welcome everyone to our Lumio Palooza global event, where we are going to be providing fun, fresh PD opportunities, highlighting how Lumio can provide a fluid workflow that benefits teachers and students. We'll show you how to create lessons and activities focused on a variety of topics, including classroom instructional best practices. My name is Jennifer Underwood, and I'm a customer success manager from Florida. This webinar, creating dynamic music Lumio lessons. I don't know. We got the words all in there somehow, right? Features Liz Chavez, technology integrator from Green Bay, Wisconsin. We encourage participation. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat box during the presentation, and we will either integrate them into the flow or hold them to be answered at the end during our Q&A period. We'll be sharing resources from today's webinar in the chat. Thank you, Sarah, so much for being in there, handling all those great questions and those great resources. Also, for participating today, a certificate will be provided after you complete a brief survey that we'll share that link at the end. At this point, I'm very honored and excited to turn things over to Liz so that you can dive into today's webinar session, creating dynamic Lumio music activities. Take it away.
You bet. Thanks, Jennifer. I am humbled and I just feel so excited to share today with everybody who's joining the webinar. And there's folks from all over the world, and this is really exciting for me. So let's dive right in. And again, if there's stuff in the chat, you guys stop me and we can take care of those questions or anything else you want to go through here. So let's dive right in. All right, so you already heard I'm a technology integrator. I am from the lovely state of Wisconsin in the United States, and I'm a technology integrator. I actually started as an elementary music teacher, and I'm still a choir director, so I have two jobs. Technology integrator, but I also am a choir director for the Green Bay Boy Choir and Girl Choir. And then on the screen in front of you, you can see a little bit more about myself. I have a kid. I have an amazing chocolate lab. I'm really active, all kinds of fun things that I like to do in life because life is short and there's always something to do, right? Okay, so now that you know a little bit about me, let's find out what are we going to be doing today. So let's take a look at our rehearsal. All right, so we're going to be doing an entrance ticket because I want to get to know all of you a little bit. We're going to be exploring some solo activities that you can do with your students for independent time, small ensemble or small group stuff, partner stuff, and then large ensemble activities. We're used to that large ensemble stuff, but maybe we can give you some more ideas for the technology side. And then I also want to make sure I give you some editing tips, just because there's some things that I've learned along the way when I'm making files for musicians in Lumio that are super helpful for you guys to know. And then we'll see if you guys have any other questions, and there's some practice materials or materials I want you to take with you today at the end of the session. All right, so what's going to happen now is in order for you to join as a student, we're going to have you do an incognito window. So at this point, I need you to open up an incognito window in either Chrome or whatever browser you're using. And then you're going to go, I'm going to display my information here for you. When you open that incognito window, because I don't want you to get the practice that you're doing right now messed up with your teacher account. So in that incognito, go to Hello Smart, and then you're going to join as a guest, please and thank you. And there's a code 377412. Yeah, we'll get that in the chat for you, Peter. Thank you, Sarah. You see a bunch of people filtering in. Give it a few seconds here. And now today, as you're doing things as a student, what I want you to think about is, maybe you like the format of the activity, but you might use it in a different way. And that's totally okay. I'm just here to share ideas and things that you might be able to take and make and do what works for you and your kids. All right, we've got 23 students connected. Jennifer and Sarah, is that about right?
Could be. It's about half. Let us know in the chat if you're not able to get connected or you want to just watch. That's okay too.
Yeah. And
And I
you
love
don't,
all your activities. Yeah, I
oh,
cannot wait to see them in action.
yeah, I'm really excited to see how people feel about them too, and whether they would find them useful for their students. So, yeah, almost there. Great, Marie. I'm glad you're joining as a student. All right, we've got about 34. Okay.
That sounds good.
All right, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and close this window. And again, Sarah has the information in the chat so that you guys can join at any point if you need to. Okay, so on your end, once you join, right now I have it set on the teacher side where it's teacher pace. So if you're still looking at my shared screen, I can click on the person icon on the top left and you can see that I'm pacing this lesson as a teacher, which means I'm driving the bus, y'all. You're on the bus and you're following me as I change my screen. If I change it to student pace, that means you're driving your own bus and you get to go from slide to slide and do the activities for the most part on your own. Okay. So in this first one, this is actually a whole group activity. And what it is, let's see here, your goal is to just drag the microphone into what you think represents your personality. What genre of music? This is a really great opener to do with kiddos. They love, oh, we've got a lot of rock and roll people here. And the
I
funny
love
thing is,
it.
it tells me a lot about their personalities. And sometimes I dabble between one or more. So I could, go from classical some days to rock and roll or musical theater other days. Jazz is not really my thing. If there's anybody in the session that knows me well, they're probably like, yeah, that makes sense. But what's really nice about this is I can see a quick snapshot of maybe what my students' personalities are like without even getting any words from them or them talking at all. I can also count how many are in each of the categories and say, okay, I've got more students that are more on the rock and roll side. So they're okay living on the edge a little bit. You'll notice in the top right, me as a teacher, I have the option to turn off everyone can edit. So like if I notice somebody is starting to move around other people's microphones, or they're adding in content that they're not supposed to be adding in, I might turn off that editing feature so that students don't, get out of hand, because that happens once in a while, right?
Does. I'm seeing in the chat lots of people saying opera. And
What?
so, yeah, so this activity is perfect because not only can students drag the microphone, right? They could use those tools on the left and they could add their own tool and kind of
Yeah,
customize and provide a little more input with either the text box or the pen.
that's a great idea. Keep those ideas coming, people. I love it. Okay, the next one though is an individual handout. So this time you're going to be working on your own handout. It's not done as a class. So go ahead and click start. And I can see your name is on my screen as a teacher. Oh, I recognize a couple of these names. This is cool. Oh my goodness, so many people. Okay, let's see here. So now I, as a teacher, I can click on any of these. So I'm actually going to pick on Jessie B. Jessie B, I hope you're okay with it. All right, so typically what happens in these handouts is I can click on each student and I can see when they add text, they can use the tools on the left. And there's a little writing tool, it's got a pen. So Gary, I think it's Gary in the chat is asking, how do I write? You can use that little pen tool on the left-hand side and you can annotate on your screen. In the far right corner, there is a star that you can drag out that says directions. So if the students don't remember what to do, they can drag that out. and they can use it. Yeah, I love it. And I can also leave feedback too. So as Jesse is writing, I could hop over here and I could give him a little smiley face if I wanted to. Oops, work. Here we
It,
go.
and there's the A. So if you wanted to add, if you're not the best at writing with your mouse, if you're on a device, you could also add the text box.
Yes.
I love
Okay,
it.
so I can also see on my screen as a teacher when somebody clicks on when they're finished, they can turn it in the top right corner and say, I'm done. And there's a little green check mark that turns up next to their name on my end as a teacher. And in the bottom right, if the students are confused or they need a demonstration, I can also click on teacher handout and I can show them how to do this activity up on maybe my teacher display if there's some confusion within the room. So very cool. And I'm gonna definitely go back and look at these later because I want to see all of your responses and kind of hop through and take a look at everybody's. This is
And
very,
that's a great point, Liz, because all their data will save right there
yes,
inside the lesson.
yeah. All right, y'all. So these were just some warm up activities because, we all like to warm up as musicians. That's super important. It kind of gets us in the groove, right? Okay, so now we're going to dive into solo activity ideas. And these activities are meant for the kids to be able to do on their own. This first one is an example of a game-based activity. So if you're familiar with Lumio, you're like, oh yeah, I know what Match 'em Up is. So you can go ahead and get started. This is on your own. I can model the activity as a teacher if I need to. So really, this is just a picture matching one. This is definitely great for younger kiddos. This could also be put up on an interactive touch display, and students can take turns coming up to the board and doing this. On the left-hand side, you'll notice that there's a volume icon. And if I were to match there we go, and then back out, I can also mute that again if I want to. The star on the left-hand side allows you to include buzzers or randomizer. Maybe you want to randomly pick a name out of the hat, which is super slick, or set a timer. Maybe the kids need that timer to help them. So they could set a 30-second or a minute timer and see how fast they can match these. So that's what that star is on the left-hand side. Oh yeah, Jennifer, this theme definitely works for this. I can also click that little half circle on the left and I can redo this. So this one allows you to redo the activity as many times as you want. It's just meant for practice. Can you change the font size so that the word fits better on the guitar pick? So the one thing you'll find with the game-based activities is that the longer the words are, the more that it does make the text a little bit smaller, and you can't it'll automatically fit it within the guitar pick. So yeah, it's set the way it is set. So that's kind of how that is with the text. Good
I've
question.
seen I've seen as like kind of a hack, right? Hack your lesson. Kind of like you did with the pictures. You could also, it's a few extra steps, right? But you could also add the words and make the words into pictures so that
Mhm.
they would all be consistent if you have extra time.
Yeah, you bet. And Gary's wondering about that randomizer. Yeah. So on the left-hand side, if I click on that star and then I click on randomizer, what that would allow me to do is that you could randomly select a student name. It really depends, but I did not set it up for this activity. So right now I don't have the randomizer active, but you could if you wanted to randomly select students. Okay, yeah, no problem. Keep the questions coming. Great questions. As a teacher for this type of activity, notice that I have up in the top middle, if you're looking at my shared screen, I have model activity, but I also have view progress. So what that means is I can look at the class overview and I can see how many people haven't started, are in progress, or completed the activity. I can also click on show results on the right-hand side, and it allows me to see exactly what the average score was. What I think is interesting too is in the bottom area, it shows me the average amount of time it took students to complete this activity. Okay. On the left-hand side, I can click on student progress. So what that means, and it'll give you the screen saying, are you sure you want to show student progress? Because this is sensitive information in some cases. So you may not want to put this up on your teacher display in this instance. So I'm going to click on show student progress and I can see exactly which students have completed, which ones are kind of maybe putzing around or have left the activity. Okay, so let's keep going because we got to check out some more of these solo activities. This one is pizza fractions. I know those of you that are elementary music teachers and you're like, what? Pizza fractions? What is going on here? But this is something that I learned when I was still teaching elementary music. So go ahead and check out the activity. It's just a very simple one, and you can add other images, obviously, if this is something you're interested in trying. And it's the same concept. It's matching. I can model the activity. I can view your progress. Yep. And I can see results for individual or class activity.
I like how it combines those concepts, right? And being able to
Yeah.
kind of understand it a little with different references.
Yeah. And yes, Sarah, I know that I noticed that it is speedy for sure. And a lot of that is because there's a lot of activities to share, but yes, it will be recorded. And so if somebody missed something, I truly apologize. But definitely check out the recording later. Thank you. All right, so that was another match 'em up activity. Very cool. We're gonna keep trucking along. This one is actually an example of a YouTube video that I embedded into, or that I added as a link, and it takes over the whole page. So for those of you that have gone down the YouTube rabbit hole, we know that putting it up on the teacher display, if you just have YouTube up, it can be kind of dicey. You never know what's going to show up on the right-hand side. So being able to embed it right into the Lumio slides or presentation activity is really helpful. Keep in mind though, that in some school districts, yeah, I love this video too, it's super funny. But some districts, when the students go to click on a YouTube video, keep in mind it may not play for them on their end if they're under the age of 13. I know in our school district, students aren't able to watch YouTube videos on their own, okay? For those of you that are not familiar with this video, I'm gonna play just a tiny bit of it because it's super cute. This is all conductors, by the way. All right, I'm going to pause it there for those of you that are familiar. I also think it's really funny that their ears move up and down when they get louder. So this is just an example of embedding a YouTube video, and then maybe you do a follow-up activity dealing with dynamics and tempo. This is actually a word search activity. And in the top right corner, if the students aren't familiar with a word search, because this is what's crazy to me. I used to do word searches all the time as a kid. I actually have come across a lot of students who have not done word searches. And I realize for some, they might consider this fluff. For me, this is really important because the more the kids hear a word and see a word, the more they remember that. Okay. So in the top left corner, there's actually audio instructions that I recorded. Sometimes when I do audio instructions, I also translate them into Spanish. So that's another thing to keep in mind is if you need to do translation, that could be part of your audio instructions here too. But this is just a word search activity. And on the left-hand side, you click and highlight where you can find a word, and then it'll cross it off on the right. In the bottom right, you do get the option to click for a hint if you're stuck and you can't find a word. Okay, so this is another great practice solo activity. All
And
right,
those are some big words. So being able to see them and like build that vocabulary is really important.
exactly. And even I remember learning some of these words and I had a hard time pronouncing them and things like that when I was much younger. And it gets easier the more that you practice them. Yeah. Oh, wow, Sarah, I did not know that. That's cool. Yeah, you can add up to 5 minutes of audio. Very true. If you go over 5 minutes, it'll cut you off. I do know that, but nobody has the attention span for that. Um, yeah, so the word searches can be different. They shouldn't look different on each device. Let me go back to that actually. Are the word searches different on each device? Mine has a different letter. Yes. So what it does is it'll mix around the letters. It's random. It's not the same. And they do that because, if a student's sitting next to another student and they're trying to like copy off of that kid, but it should be pretty much different for each of the kids. I know that is brilliant. I love it.
Mm. And each
Um,
time you hit that little reset, it will give you another opportunity to play that is a little bit different looking.
yeah, that little half circle on the left for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to point out that I almost forgot about is you'll notice the background on this is very neutral. So this is also more friendly for older students. Sometimes I know people are like, oh, some of the backgrounds are just they're too much for older kids or whatever the case is, and they're looking for something a little bit more neutral. You can pick the background on a lot of these game-based activities that you've seen so far that make it a little bit older kid friendly is a good word.
Yep. That's a new update with a variety of new themes.
Yes, yeah, and I was super excited to see that because sometimes neutral is better. It's also
Yeah.
better for those that have autism and things of that nature. Okay. All right. So this is the next example for solo activities is a handout. And what this one is sometimes I would hear from teachers, well, I want the kids to do some research on a particular person. And, not just necessarily in music, but this is also helpful in other content areas. But what it is it's just a one-page handout, and the kids can add all of their research information into this one page. Now, I'm not saying to completely ditch, writing in a notebook about this person that they're researching because they may need to take notes. And I love handwriting notes. It's one of those things that's really important to me. But then what is it that you want them to capture about this person? They don't necessarily need to write a book, right? You just need to know what did they learn and what is the most important stuff. So this is just an example of a handout if you want the kids to do some research about a composer or a particular musician of any sort.
And
Okay.
Liz, if you don't mind, I'd love to add that this could be like an end project too. Like this could be a one-page lesson that you share the student link for. And maybe it's not like in a bigger lesson, but maybe this is just they have access outside of class with the student link and then they can complete it on their own.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. You don't have to have a whole lesson, right? You could just have this one page that's sent directly to the kids. I do see a question, how do I add a picture? So on the left-hand side, if you look at your tools, there's a heart plus picture and circle icon. If you click on that, and then there's a menu that pops out. Yeah, good, you found it. There's a little picture icon in that pop-out menu on the left-hand side there. And I love that Lumio includes a Bing safe search. So that means you're not going to get anything that might be sketchy or questionable, especially if you're searching in front of the kids or if the kids need to do a safe search. They can select their own images as well. Maybe they have something that they've put together in Google Drive or in their Microsoft OneDrive or whatever it is, and they can pull those resources in if you want them to include more pictures. Okay, great question. Let's see here. What did you create this in? So Sally, I actually created this in, that's a great question. I created it in a Google presentation and then pulled it in here. And I got the idea, I saw it was it on TikTok, or you guys know how that goes. You see something and you're like, oh, I'm going to take that and I'm going to move it around a little bit. So yeah, created it in a Google presentation and then I uploaded it into Lumio and it made it super slick. Okay. All right. Any other questions that I missed? I don't think so.
Lots of great questions and comments.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I am gonna keep going here. The next one, actually the next two or three are they are composition ones. So if you're looking for a way to have students compose, this one is an ostinato composition. And in the top right, again, I have those audio instructions, but I also put in a link. You'll notice that there's a YouTube link there in case you need to give an example of what an ostinato is, or if the kids have access to YouTube, they can click on it themselves and review what an ostinato is. In this particular activity, I use the infinite cloner and the kids just drag the photo over and then they can create a repeating pattern, okay? And that's exactly how they would complete their composition. And I, as a teacher, I can demonstrate it, but then I can also see your progress here. So I'm gonna click on Christina and see what she's up to. It's okay, she's not doing anything yet, but that's all right. She's still thinking about her composition. Oh, there, we got a foot stomp. Nailed it. I love it. So you can see as the kids are working on it, maybe walk over by them if you notice that they're struggling. And I saw a question about adding a link. So the way that I added the link is when I went into editing mode, and we'll do a little bit more of this later, there's a link option where you can get stuff directly from YouTube and link it in there. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay. All right, we're gonna keep going so you can see another composition activity. This one was super simple to create. I did little to nothing.
That's kind, right?
I know, I love that. It took me about 2 minutes to create this one, and I know what everybody's thinking. Yeah, right, Liz. I'm really not joking. So this template exists already in the Lumio. Oh my gosh, my trainer.
Manipulatives?
Thank you. There is
Yes.
a manipulative, and there's a bunch of math manipulatives in the list, but this one is hiding at the bottom of those manipulatives. And it's wonderful because all the symbols at the bottom, for the most part, are already infinitely cloned or there. And then the kids can just drag them up and they can start composing on the music staff, which is super slick. So this is just another way to do the composing activity. Yeah, and I'll show you where to find those music manipulatives when we get into the editing. After you compose, is there a way to play it? Mary, no, but that's when I would have the kids just grab an instrument, maybe a xylophone, and see if they can play what they wrote. And that's important too, is, being able to play what you wrote. Can you undo? So in my world, because I love keyboard shortcuts, so if I drag something out, let's see. I can't undo. What I can do is just click on the object and press delete on my keyboard, or I can click the drop down for that object and select delete. Okay, so you can't undo, Brittany, but you can definitely delete objects that you put out there. Okay, good questions. All right, I'm gonna keep going. This one I'm super, super excited about. This is brand new. Lumio, or I'm sorry, Smart, just started a partnership with Flat, the company Flat, and the music program. So what this allows you to do is the kids get a flat blank score. This is great for middle school and high school students to be able to come in, and there's no other things on the page except for the Flat program, and they can compose the music. They can use all of those Flat resources that you might already use, but now you're bringing it right into this Lumio activity. So they're not going out and opening a new tab. The one thing I would say though, is that in this activity, I can't necessarily see the students' compositions. Let's see here, I can only do it as an example. So you'll notice I don't have student tiles on my screen. So like I can't hop into Christina's and Jesse's to see their composition. This is really just a place for them to compose and practice. And really, I would just stand over their shoulder, or I would ask them to maybe take a screenshot of their composition after they're done if you really needed them to share that. Tracy, why is this so small? Yeah, there you may need to zoom. In the top right corner, there's a little zoom icon. And if I click on that, I can zoom in and I can see that piano score a lot better there. Okay, so I just wanted to say super excited that they started this partnership with Flat, because it brings in a whole new level of music composition that I know band, orchestra, general music teachers are like, yeah, can I get a hallelujah? Right? Okay, let's dive into Jesse Baumgarten. Yes, I knew you would say that. Let's dive into some small ensemble or small group activity ideas. And you remember those solo activities that you just did? Well, guess what? You can turn any of them into a small group or partner activities. It's super slick. So maybe you create something that was individualized at first, but now you're like, okay, let's see how they collaborate together, right? Stop, collaborate, and listen. So now this time, that ostinato composition activity is set up as a group workspace. So if I click on setup, I can decide, I'm going to go with 8 teams. I like even numbers. Look at that magic. I am not doing anything. Lumio is doing all the work. They divided my kids into teams for me. Something to keep in mind though is like, if I know that Maureen does not get along with Peter and they cannot work together, I can actually move Maureen or Peter to a different group. And I can say, oh, I'm going to go ahead and move some people around. I just want to make sure the groups are evenly distributed, that sort of thing. Okay, so this is a really great way to have students collaborate. And once I click Start Workspace, you are not sitting next to any of your partners, right? But you can work in the same workspace. So I'm going to click on Team 1 Workspace here and see what y'all are doing. You're working on composing an ostinato together. So you're able to drag the images and you take turns and help compose together. Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Collaboration all around the world in one place. My heart is just beaming right now. All right, you guys, for time's sake, because I have so many to share, right, Jennifer? That's what she's thinking.
No, you're doing great. You're great. I kept an eye on the time.
Yeah. So this group workspace for composition can be transferred into that same melodic ostinato. Maybe you want them to use this manipulative to compose a melodic ostinato together instead of just one. Can group members communicate with each other? In Lumio, no, there is no way for them to chat with each other. But at one of the schools that I work with that is purely online learning, what they'll do is they'll keep a Zoom room open and they'll give the kids the ability to go into breakout rooms with their group. So they'll partner a Zoom breakout with the groups that are in Lumio. It does take a little bit of finagling, but for them, it has been super helpful if they are doing online learning with students and they need to talk to each other while they're composing. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so that's just another example of a composition activity. This one is if you have a lot of partners and the kids are struggling with working together and you need to give them their own space, but they're also still collaborating. So I've done stuff like this with kids. And at first it just takes them an understanding of, you stay in your workspace. This is my dance space. Here's your dance space, right? Does anybody know that movie?
It sounds familiar, but I can't
Yes.
think of it.
Here's your dance space. This is my dance space. Yes, I love. Oh my gosh. It's the Dirty Dancing movie when they're first starting to dance together. Okay. So yes, all of them have their own composing space, but they're also still doing it together. Okay. So that's another example of doing a small group activity. But let's dive into those large ensemble activities. Okay. Do you remember that warm up that we did together? Well, just keep in mind that you can do that with your classes too. So, that same activity that I set up for all of you, you could do that with your students, especially at the beginning of the year when you're trying to build that understanding of who they are. Another one, though, is in musicians or music teachers, we tend not to do this too much because I think too many choices for students can be kind of scary. But I have seen this done successfully, particularly in a music IB classroom, so International Baccalaureate classroom. She puts this choice board up on her screen, or she sends it, links it out to the students, and they click on it through Google Classroom and Seesaw. And what they can do then is they can click on the choice board. And when they do that, it gives them the choice of what they're doing for that lesson today. And again, I know what some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know how I could handle something like this. But keep in mind, you can decide what the choices look like on this board. And the choice board can be anything that you want, right? So again, the students can do this individually on their own devices, pick their own choice, or you can put it up on the teacher screen and say, you know what, everybody, here we go. I'm going to click on this one. All of us today are going to turn your favorite song and we're going to have a dance party.
Oh, the best one.
Yeah. So the choice board idea for the whole class is super slick and really helpful, right? Yeah, I love the choice board too. Good, you guys. Okay, let's keep going. This one is a little bit more serious because sometimes as musicians, we have to get serious. So this one is a response activity. So it is basically multiple choice, true, false, multi answer. And what it is that allows the students to answer different questions. And the first one is just solve this math addition problem. So I need to know, do you actually know how many beats each of these music notes is worth? Well, if you do, then you'll be able to solve this math problem. Okay. This one is really simple to set up, and I just grab snipped images to put in for my math equations. So I put the math equations into like a Google presentation, and I snipped that little image and brought them into here. Okay. So essentially, you guys can run the quiz and you can do each of the answers on your own. And I can go through and see how many students have answered the questions. I love this. And it's also a really great way to incorporate math or other areas into music. So then the kids can kind of put those two concepts together because honestly, we do a lot of math in music and people don't necessarily realize that, right? As a teacher, I can click on end activity. And what that would mean is that ends the quiz for everybody. And once I end the quiz or the activity, then I can actually export. So I know some of you have not finished and it's okay because this is just practice, right? Not a performance. So we're going to end and review here. I know what some of you are thinking. Come on, teach. I wanted to finish. Okay, so in this, now I can go through and I can click in the bottom right as the teacher, and I can see how you guys did with all of your answers. In the bottom right, I can also export the results. Yeah, this activity is in Smart Notebook too. So you'll see that a lot of the things you maybe have experienced in Smart Notebook are also available in Lumio, or you can export or import it from Smart Notebook into Lumio, which is super slick. Okay. Yep. So I'm going to keep going here. This one is a reflection activity. Usually after all of my concerts, whether it was with my elementary kids, middle or high schoolers, I always wanted to know, how are you feeling today? Or maybe rehearsal went really well, or it didn't go really well and it was an absolute hot mess. It's really important to do those check-ins with your kids, see how they're feeling, because if you felt that way, they probably felt the same way. And it's important for them to recognize those feelings because music it's a feeling, right? We need to know, how are you feeling about today's rehearsal? right? How did you feel about the performance? And somebody's adding in a laughing emoji. I love that. So if I want to at any point, like if somebody adds in stuff they should, you can turn off the everyone can edit in the top right corner if I want to. Oh, I love this. We've got some really great
Yeah.
responses. Jesse, I'm gonna guess that was you, that emoji.
You can also see who contributed, right? By selecting the object, and then
Yes.
it'll tell you.
If I click on this purple um, on the top right side here, I can click on the purple, click the drop down, and I can see that Christina added this response. So I can see it as the teacher. I don't necessarily have to put this up on my screen, and I can kind of gauge how my students are feeling, right? So this is just a nice quick way to reflect. The next one is a shout it out. So what this is it allows you to shout out, how are you feeling about rehearsal or the performance that we just did? What can we work on? What did we do well? And people can shout out what they're thinking and feeling. So go ahead and shout out, how are you feeling about today's rehearsal or performance?
And I like how you don't have display names on, so everybody has like that risk-free
Yep.
platform to be able to share. You can go back in and definitely
Mhm.
see if you needed to check in on anything, but it gives
Yeah.
students that opportunity to be a little bit anonymous and share.
Not running for you. Oh, there we go. Let's try this again. Otra vez. There you go. Now you guys should be able to do it. Thank you for saying something, Lisa. I was like, why? I'm not
Oh,
seeing any responses. There we go. I love it. We did great. Super. And yeah, again, like I can take a look at these and maybe I drag them and we categorize them. So you can take the positive ones, this is what we did well, and move them to one side of the screen. What do we need to work on? Go on the other side. You can set it up in advance with a shout it out if you do want to categorize stuff too. But sometimes I don't like to because I want the kids to come and help me organize this information and help them see all of the responses and things of that nature. Okay. So I'm going to come back and take a look at these responses. But again, I knew I was going to run short on time, right? So here's the tricky part is we are at 10:45. And for those that, because am I allowed to stay open with a link, right? For a little
yeah.
bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
For those,
for those
sorry.
that we're actually gonna have you exit the student lesson. And all of the stuff that you saw today, I'll give you so you can take and make and use as your own. So what we're gonna have you do now in the top left corner, you're gonna click on the hamburger, the three lines, and then you're gonna click on, I believe it says exit class. So you go ahead and take care of that, and I'll start to see my number go down on my end. And then in the chat, we're actually going to link the lesson that's meant for them to use to practice with editing here. Sarah, do you have it or do you want me to grab that?
I got it. I'm just grabbing it real quick.
Perfect. Thank you.
And maybe for those that do have to leave, um, I know the next session is 1 p.m. Eastern time, but if you
Oh,
do have to leave, we can also share some of the end resources with you so you could do some of the editing on your own. But if you're have a few minutes and you're able to stay on with us a little bit longer, we'd love to have you see the editing side of
mhm.
Liz's activities. Totally up to you though. We understand either way.
Let's see here. This will be recorded too, so you can see the recording.
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Great
That's
point.
100% true, Casey. Oh, Brittany, I'm not sure. That's a good question, Jennifer. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't think we're going to have them expire, at least not anytime soon. You'll get a follow-up email and you'll also be able to go back to the Lumio Palooza website and see all the sessions and all the material. So
Mhm.
give us a few days so we can get everything out to you, but you'll definitely have everything that you need to be able to rewatch this amazing session on your own time as well.
and will be on our
Yeah.
YouTube. Oh, very cool. That's exciting. Okay, so Sarah went ahead and there is a file link. It's a teacher file link. So when you go ahead and click on that, and I know once you click on it, you're gonna have to click on, it'll give you a preview, and then you can click on add to my library. And when you click on add to your library, it's gonna process for a little while. And I know that you may not get there as quickly as I am, but once you click on save to my library and it's done processing, you will be able to click on edit. So again, click on save to my library and then let it process, click on edit. And then once you click on edit, it's going to look a little different than when you practiced as a student. Because as a student, you know, the whole thing in the background was black, right? But when you're in editing mode, you'll notice there's a blue line at the top, and you'll see your slides on the left-hand side as well. Okay, love it. Did I miss the survey? There we go. So we got the survey link. And for those staying, again, Sarah at 10:47 Central Standard Time, she did put the link in there so you can go along and edit with me. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going, and whenever you get a chance to hop into editing, just hop in to the same page as me and we'll get there together, okay? So one of the things that I wanted to go through with you is when you're editing or composing doing the composing activities. So let me scroll down here. Here we go. I'm actually going to go through this one. When you're doing the game-based activities, something to keep in mind is that you get this preview, right? But in the top middle area, I can click on edit activity. And when I go into editing mode for a game-based activity like this, it'll give me my categories on the left-hand side. And you'll notice I have the pictures. And if you want to add a picture, you just click on the picture icon, and then it'll give you that Bing safe search if you want to do it that way, or you can upload your own. And then the other category is the matching word. I've also done this with music rhythms, where you match the music rhythm with the number of beats that that rhythm is worth. So there's lots of ways that you can do a matching activity like this. So once I choose my categories, pictures and text, I can click on next. And then I can decide on what type of background or theme that I want. And note again, there's some just standard colors here. That's super helpful for those that maybe need something less busy for their learning environment, or maybe they're older and some of those themes are just so not their thing, right? So you can choose your theme, you click finish, and then the activity is just set up for the kids. The magic happens automatically with those game-based activities. And for those of you wondering, where do you even find game-based activities? That blue plus sign, whenever you're in editing mode, is going to be your best friend. So in the bottom left-hand corner, when you click on that blue plus sign, you'll see all of the different choices of what you can bring into your Lumio activities. And right on the right-hand side are those game-based activities. And there's so many choices. This one is the match 'em up activity. And you'll notice that it says teacher-led here. So it's important, oops, discard that. It is important to note that when you click on those game-based activities, which ones are teacher-led and which ones do not need to be teacher-led. So keep that in mind as you're going through and picking out your game-based activities. Yeah, the game show is super fun too. I've done that one with kids. They're very, like, all of the game-based activities are very highly engaging and can take a lot of the more difficult content and music and make it a lot more fun to do with the kids, for sure. Okay. I also want to point out in the top right corner, there's a talking head. And I call it that because that's just what I've learned it is called. But it's where you can click on the talking head and you can record audio instructions. And again, that is where you could do translation too. So if you know you're working with bilingual, trilingual students, you may need to translate for them, right? Okay, so the slides 3, 4, and 5 and 6 are all game-based activities. So those are where you can pull in those magical templates and game-based activities, and the magic just happens, right? But as we scroll down to slide number 8, and I'll come back to 7, I promise. Slide number 8 was a handout activity. So when I click on slide number 8, you'll notice that the activity is there, and I can see that purple icon, which represents the individual handout, right? But if I want to change this handout, I click on edit activity. And in this case, you'll notice that it's just text boxes and a background image. Again, I created the background image in Google Presentation. And when I did that, and I wanted to bring it in here, what do you think I clicked on to get that in here? You guessed it, the blue plus sign in the bottom left. So when I clicked on that blue plus sign, I would click on import resource, and then I pulled that Google presentation from my Google Drive. And it'll say you're going to pull the whole thing. No. You can select just the slide that you want to pull in from Google Drive. So you don't have to pull the whole thing, right? You can just pull one page, which is super slick. So if I ever want to change anything on here, I have to go in and edit. But something really important to know is that on a page like this, the magic doesn't just happen, because I created this template and I put in the text boxes, right? So how do we make the magic happen? In the top right corner, you have to click on the magic wand. Okay, so whenever you see that magic wand in the top right corner, you have to make the magic happen. It ain't going to happen on its own. So this is where I can decide on that individual, group, or whole class whiteboard. So that's why before, when you guys were trying out the composing activities, you did it as an individual first, but then I also changed it to a group activity. So this is how you do that, and you can quickly decide how the kids are going to handle doing that. Okay.
And I was just thinking, as a kind of an add-on to the talking head with the audio, is that some of the text, if you have on immersive reader, it will also provide those additional scaffolds and supports for students as well, which is great to have, especially with activities that, could require a little bit more like translations. But I love the idea of you also adding those translations in the audio. That is a
Yeah, and
great.
you are 100% right. And I always forget about the immersive reader, but I use it too. So,
Mhm.
I mean, when we as teachers have our immersive reader enabled in our settings, then the students can experience the immersive reader on their end, and it will help read the text to them, which is super slick. Okay. So slides 8, 9, 10, they're all composing ones that are individual handouts, and I had to click on the magic wand. Now, activities like slide 11 and slide 7, those were a little different. Okay, so let's talk on 11 and then I'll jump back. So slide 11 was Flat, the company or the composing software for Flat, right? But Flat, I didn't create. I had to pull that in. So I clicked on the blue plus sign, and then if you type in Flat in the Lumio library, it's going to give you different Flat activities by that company that you can pull in. And there's accidentals, there's duration, a blank score, rhythm and blues, treble, clef, and note identification. So you really can't go wrong. There's so much there from Flat that you can pull in. And it was super slick. Yeah, Gary, isn't that easy? Like blue plus sign, I did a search and bam, it was done. What did that take me? Like 30 seconds? Super slick. Okay. And in this one, I don't see the magic wand. So I don't have to make the magic happen. It just happens for the kids. Okay. And I want to jump back to slide 7 really quickly because somebody had asked about sharing links. How do I put a link into the slide like this? So when you click on the blue plus sign, there's a couple of ways to do this. If I click on the YouTube option, this is where I can search for the YouTube video, or like if I already know what the link is, I can actually paste it in here, and then it'll just show up here. I can click on it and add it, and it takes up the whole slide. That's if you want to do the YouTube version. If you wanted to do just a standalone link, and I believe I had that on slide 9. So what I did on slide 9 is I clicked on edit, and to add in the link in the top right corner there, I clicked on the icons in the middle right, heart plus image and circle. And when I did that, there's a menu that pops up on the left-hand side, and it's got a link icon. And when I click on the link icon, I have the option to paste a URL. So maybe it's not something from YouTube. It could be from Discovery Education or Brain Pop or whatever it is. You can take links and you can paste them directly into your lesson, which is super slick. Okay. All right, you guys. A couple of more things that I want to point out because we're at 10:58 and I'm pushing it right down to the wire. Musicians are really good at that. Some of the other things to point out in these activities are like slides 16 through 18. These are old school smart notebook files that I borrowed from somebody else. And I just pulled them in from Smart Notebook because sometimes the classics are super helpful. So slides 16 through 18, those are more towards music solfege for those of you that are dabbling in music solfege. And then when we start getting down to slides 20 through 24, those are those whole group or ensemble ones. And if you're wondering, where did you find the stuff on slide 21? All I did was click on that blue plus sign in the bottom left-hand corner. And I clicked on the Lumio library and I just typed in SEL, social emotional learning, right? And it gave me a bunch of reflection type activities. I edited what the question was at the bottom of the page, and that was it. Okay. So for those of you looking for SEL stuff, you can click in the search for Lumio library and you can find some of those social emotional reflection type activities. I also want to point out while I'm here that manipulative with the music grant or the music staff and all of the music symbols, that was a manipulative. So if I click on this green square and then I scroll down, the musical notes manipulative is right there. And when you click on a manipulative and you add it in, it just adds in as a blank or on a page on the left. And then I can edit and choose which musical symbols at the bottom I want to keep as infinitely cloned. If I want to get rid of one because I'm like, well, my kids are not really focusing on bass clef stuff yet, I can click on the bass clef, the infinite cloner, disable it, and then I can delete that if I don't want the kids to have that as an option. So you can change which symbols they use. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do here to wrap this up is if you look on page 26, there are some specific music resources that I've linked here that I went through and I found some really great classics, some new stuff, some things that I thought were helpful from today's learning that you would want as well. So please make sure you visit slide 26 in this resource and check out all of these linked resources. So if you click on the images on the left, it'll take you to those resources, or the text on the right, you'll be able to find those resources as well. Okay. And slide 27 are some more Lumio resources. I'm part of the Lumio ambassador group. I love it. I get all kinds of content from there, and there's a great place where you can post questions if you're wondering something or you're looking for answers or different ideas. But then the YouTube channel, all of these things that are linked here, make sure you check them out. Lumio has so many resources for y'all to check out and try and learn. And then in the chat there, Sarah has linked the survey. Please let me know what your feedback is. I had a blast today and I'm so appreciative. I know I pushed that time limit, but there's just so much to share and I'm excited to bring the music world into Lumio for everyone.
We love it. Thank you. This session was incredible. And we'd love for you to join our session tomorrow where it's all about becoming an ambassador. So you could be part of the community with Liz as well. Let's see, we've got, sorry.
I love the ambassador community. Yep. It's so great.
Yep. And you don't have to be an expert. You just have to have a passion for learning. So think of all the great things that you can learn from each other and share what you know as well. So I'm waiting for the chat. I see that Sarah is posting lots of resources, making sure everybody has everything that they need. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Thank you so much, Liz, for taking us through all of those wonderful ways and activities to really get students involved and engaged in their learning. And it was lovely. And being able to edit and kind of customize all of those and pointing out how you made all of that magic happen, whether it was part of Lumio or you had to do it yourself. It was incredible. And thank you, Sarah, for keeping up with the chat. So many great questions came from all of you. So everyone attending, thank you as well. And we hope to see you at future sessions. We have the next one is in an hour away, and some great things again tomorrow.
All right. Thank
Well,
you so much.
thank you. Lots of great comments. See, the chat has slowed down a little, so I'm going to end it. Aw, you're getting great kudos too, Liz. We don't want to stop that yet. Wait a sec. They're still coming in.
I recognize some of the people in here, and Jesse, I have to point this out. I actually, when I was in college, he was a choral director in the area, and I was just in observation. So I was still in college, and I was just going to observe other music educators. And one day he threw me in front of his choir because I was really shy, really quiet, really tentative and scared. And he's like, "You're doing it. It's happening."
He
And
believes in you.
yeah, and amazing. And he's an amazing human being. I know Jesse's thinking, "Stop it, Liz," but I'm serious.
Aw,
I learned so much,
aw,
and my confidence in being able to, share today. Thank you, Jesse, for helping me build that confidence. So yeah,
aw. Wow, that's so sweet. Well,
yeah,
I'm glad everyone was connected, and I definitely feel the love.
yeah. So thank you again for the opportunity, you guys.
Yes, we are so happy you presented for us and are part of the community, one of the gang.
Yeah.
Yes,
All
awesome
right.
job, Liz. Great, great job. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.